Hi there. Hello. John here. Welcome to a new reaction video to knowledge again. And today we are going to check out why did Rome become an empire. The lead up to the formation of the office of emperor in the Roman entity in the Roman state, basically, and the gradual change from the traditional republic to an empire. So this is the thumbnail, by the way, and I'm going to leave the video down below in the description box and to the pinned comment, so go check it out. And yeah, let's do this and begin. Of course, let's like the video and let's do it. Okay.
Julius Caesar would
Hold on. I need to get this
have
higher.
been proud.
Okay, hold on. Let
One
me go
by
here.
one.
Okay, so they're going to refer by their names, by their English names or something, but I am going to, refer to the characters in the video by their Latin connotations.
His
So
heir had
yeah, okay, let's begin. Okay,
Julius Caesar would have been proud.
yeah, that's a code, historical code. I'm pretty sure. So Julius Caesar would have been pride.
One by one, his heir had cut down the opposition, clearing the well-trodden path to Rome and power.
Yep.
Before the bloody Ides of March, before the Second Triumvirate, before the war against Cleopatra, Gaius Octavius was a young, sickly boy with scarcely anything to offer.
Yeah.
His family is believed to have been a prominent one in their town of Velletri, and both his
Yes,
parents
that's
were
wrong.
of notable stock.
Yep.
His father was a governor of Macedonia for some time.
Yeah, look at this difference. Both Octavian and his father had the same name, and the son obviously had been passed down the name because their name was kind of like a clan. It was kind of like noble family, so the head of that family needed to have the same name. That's how the recognition went by. So yeah, for a period of his time, for like early years, indeed, Augustus's name was Gaius Octavius, and then after he got adopted by his biological great uncle, I'm pretty sure, or uncle, he changed his name and added Julius Caesar to it. So it was Gaius Julius Caesar Octavius or something like that.
And his paternal family as a whole is thought to have been involved in both military and politics.
Yep.
But leaps and bounds more importantly, Octavius's mother was the niece of none other.
Okay. So Julius Caesar is indeed the great uncle of Gaius Octavius. Okay.
Than Julius Caesar. The boy's childhood was nevertheless more mild than was his bloodline.
I'll put this one here
After
for
the
now.
death of his father in 59 BC,
That's fine.
the
Just
young
leave it here.
Octavius was a mere 4 years old. The child's mother remarried to Lucius Marcius Philippus.
So Lucius Marcius Philippus. Okay, I think I heard this name. Lucius Marcius Philippus. I heard this name somewhere. I don't know where though.
Who was not too keen on becoming a stepfather. Thus, Julius Caesar's sister, Octavius's grandmother, took the boy in until her death by 51 BC. By now, Philippus had little choice, and Octavius's mother took her son back in. By his teenage years, the boy was already finding purpose in his life. He was elected to the College of Pontiffs in 47 BC.
Not the current pontiff, the Pope. There are other religious offices at the time, and Christianity didn't really exist at that point, of course.
And eagerly began looking for additional responsibilities. When Julius Caesar had begun preparations for his expedition in Africa, the ardent young Octavius showed an interest in joining his elder relative. Failing to obtain his mother's support for the endeavor, Octavius reluctantly sat out, at least until his next opportunity.
Interesting.
When Caesar...
And that's pretty normal, honestly. Like, young boys wanting the recognition of their father or like the elder man of the family, because with recognition you get influence and power, and young boys are groomed by the society itself to want to be glorious, to want to spread their influence in politics and military. That's how it was a society back there.
Was later carrying out his campaign in Hispania, Octavius finally got his wish. Off he went to Hispania.
Okay.
The journey to join his great uncle in battle was a laborious one. Before he'd even begun, Octavius fell gravely ill,
Bruh.
an occurrence that would plague his life until the very end of it. Caesar,
Whoa.
who already looked very aloofly upon his juvenile relative, had likely written Octavius off entirely by now. Young, weak, sick, not much of an age to the soon-to-be dictator. But Octavius thought differently. He was determined.
He had the will.
Focused. He wasn't done.
Yep. Bro,
Having at last
this looks like the beginning of a movie, honestly. Cinematic movie.
From his bout of ill health, Octavius boarded his ship and sailed off for his destination. Nearing Caesar's battlefield, the zealous teen's vessel was wrecked. Somehow making his way ashore with only a small bunch of his men, Octavius reached the coastline, though he was now on enemy territory. Still unwilling to back down, the boy marched on, finally reaching Caesar's camp, stunning the latter. Caesar had anticipated a disappointment from his great-nephew, not this magnificent feat. And yet here was Octavius, weakened, drained, but eager to please. It was in this moment, historians believe, that Julius Caesar realized just how important this wily teenager could be.
And you have to understand that Octavian at this point didn't get the recognition of his great uncle by just winning a battle, by just a conquest, by any political move. He won the recognition of Kaiser by literally the will and passion to fight alongside his great uncle. And honestly, if that happened to me, let's say if I was in Kaiser's place, I'll do the same. I'll also recognize him because it's very, very dangerous, especially by sea to travel. Even though the sea was already Mare Nostrum, it was already the Sea of the Romans. Still, mostly, still, it was pretty dangerous, you know. And if let's say any random kid was in Octavius's place, even if they reached the place around here, even if they reached the coast, they would either immediately go back or just stay there and wait for their uncle to come. Like they wouldn't just set off again in enemy territory, march off, and risk their life to get there. Like that's pretty courageous in my book.
Upon his return to Rome, Caesar presented the Vestal Virgins with his updated will, this one making the young Gaius Octavius his one and only heir. By now, 44 BC.
And at this point, I think Gaius Octavius took the name of his great uncle and adoptive father.
Octavius had left the service,
or that will happen after Julius Caesar's death, I'm not sure.
Of his great uncle, and traveled to Apollonia for further military training for his now bright.
Apollonia is basically, I'm pretty sure, the equivalent to Dyrrhachium.
Future. This stint would come to an abrupt end when word arrived in Illyria of the brutal murder of Julius Caesar.
Damn.
In the face of stern warnings and advices against showing up in Italy so soon after the conspiracy had taken place, Octavius, now known as Octavian after his adoption by Caesar.
Yeah, it was like, wait, let me search it out, guys. Hold on. Octavian, hold on. We have Augustus, and then we have the names over here. If I can find it, that is. It should be like around here. It should be around here. His name. I'm not sure if it. Why doesn't it show? Why does it show? Okay. So, no, not this. That's the original name. Okay, it should show somewhere else. Somewhere else it should show. Honestly, lol. Okay, there we go. Name. So, okay, so basically, as consequence of Roman custom, society, and personal preference, Augustus was known by many names throughout his life. Gaius Octavius, according to Suetonius, the cognomen Thurinus was added to his birth name as a toddler in 60 BC. So he had a nickname Thurinus basically. Later, after he had taken the name of Kaiser, his rival Marcus Antonius referred to him as Turinus in order to belittle him. Marcus Junius Brutus, one of the assassins of Julius Caesar, referred to Octavianus as Octavius, rejecting Octavianus's claim to testamentary adoption. Gaius Julius Caesar, after his adoption by Julius Caesar, So basically, this is the name he took from his adoptive father and biological great uncle, but this is his birth name basically. So yeah.
Set his sails for Rome. It's likely that Octavian until
Okay, let
now
me
was
get
unsure what,
1.5.
if anything, Julius had left for him. Mark Antony too hadn't
Okay.
known that the assassinated dictator
So Marcus Antonius was actually a general under Caesar. That's like under Kaiser, my bad. That's pretty interesting.
had given everything of importance to the rising star of the family. After finding out about the will, Octavian accepted his late relative's offer, prompting Antony to begin flinging slanderous accusations his way, implying that the young man had only gained his position by immoral means. This hadn't been true, but it is fair to say that Octavian soon gained notable funds through such methods, demanding that which had been held for Caesar's planned military campaigns and stealing yearly tribute funds. Still, the loyal veterans of the deceased dictator's wars were quick to join the ranks of Octavian.
Okay.
The only problem, now, was that Octavian wasn't short of a rival. Mark Antony was an equally valid option as the leader of Caesar's remaining supporters.
Yep.
Thankfully for Octavian, however, the Senate was in favor of Caesar's named heir, not the would-be one in the form of Antony. This led to the clash between Antony and Octavian, brought on by the siege of Mutina. During Antony's campaign, back in Rome, Octavian had been made a senator, as well as Imperium Pro Praetore.
Imperium Pro Praetore. Okay, what's that title mean?
Whether Octavian made his next move based purely on internal motive,
Does it mean like Victorious Praetor or something? A victorious general of the praetors, maybe. Not
or
sure.
the fact that he felt the Senate had heaped far more praise on Decimus Brutus than himself after the defeat of Mark Antony is hazy. But either way, it was thus that Octavian switched sides, now demanding the revocation of the declaration that Mark Antony was an enemy of Rome, and insisting that he claim the consulships left open by the death of both consuls. When the Senate refused, Octavian used a show of military capability to change their tune.
Yep, literally did what his great uncle did, crossed the Rubicon and forced his will.
This was what led to his election as consul alongside Quintus Pedius. All the while, Mark Antony was shaking hands with Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. And here,
Marcus Aemilius Lepidus was also part of the triumvirate, the second triumvirate that is.
birthed the second triumvirate.
Yep.
The alliance that lasted from 43 BC to its official expiration in 32 BC did little more than push Octavian closer and closer to the helm of what remained of the Roman Republic.
Yeah, basically during this time, Octavius actually agreed to the triumvirate mainly because he was inexperienced compared to Marcus Antonius and Lepidus. So, he needed time to gather experience, to gain more influence, more strength. So it makes sense.
After the defeat and suicide of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, the true and sole remaining heir to Julius Caesar was left with three obvious options.
Actually, there was like little Caesar, son of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, but we don't care about him.
In one instance, he could march back to Rome and take two on his grand uncle's plan to seize all power over the Republic. Repeating the steps of Caesar would be highly risky, however. Rome was undeniably in a state of instability and wanting a strong leader. But that didn't mean that the Senate, at a minimum, had sunk so low as to hope for another dictator.
Yep.
For Octavian to storm into Rome and declare himself the singular ruler would open the door for yet another conspiracy and assassination.
Exactly. So it would be like the same, the same situation that happened to his great uncle. So he had to think of a plan of anything to seize power, but in the eyes of the people and the Senate, to not have full power. Like figuratively and nominally, he wouldn't have power, but in actuality and in effect, he would have supreme power. You're gonna see how.
So, to follow the path of his predecessor seemed scarcely a viable option. Alternatively, then, Octavian could do the complete opposite of what Caesar had done.
Yep.
He could return to Rome, finish out his duties, then return to a typical political life as anyone else. This would be a much safer way to go, and life would be fairly easy. But
yeah, basically he could just like end his consulship, fulfill his duties as a senator, maybe because of his accomplishments get like a higher title, like like leader of the Senate, or as a tribune, maybe, who knows. But in the end, he didn't want that, you know. He didn't want military power. He didn't want just political power. He wanted everything, but he couldn't have everything on a plate given to him by the people and the Senate, knowing that they will give absolute power to him. So he thought of a plan.
But Octavian gave no thought to the concept of easy. Thus,
Yep.
his next option would be the one he would ultimately choose. And that was to ease, or some may say, weasel, his way into power.
Yep.
After returning to Rome, and knowing that he still held enough potency as consul and secured the loyalty of citizens and soldiers around the Republic, on January 13th, 27 BC, in theatrical fashion for all to see, Octavian relinquished his prior earned extra constitutional powers, alongside his provinces and their legions, to the Senate. As he likely predicted, the Senate reacted by turning right back around and giving Octavian's powers back, as well as granting him full control over the legions and provinces of Cyprus, Cilicia.
Yeah, he used reverse psychology, okay? He used reverse psychology over there. And of course, if the Senate refused to give him his powers and accepted his offer, then the people would rise up, and all of the senator's power and influence would be gone, literally. So, of course, I think they were kind of forced. Some may have done it out of their own, will, but some may have been forced to do this because if they didn't, then they would have lost their power and influence.
Egypt, Syria, Hispania, and Gaul.
And this is important, those regions, because Egyptus, Syria, Sicilia, Hispania, and Gallia, those regions are very, very wealthy, have a lot of manpower, and they're very, very easy to control as well. Not to mention that what territories remain, they're not as powerful if a hypothetical civil war breaks. Having Hispania and Gaul just means that Italia will soon fall. Egypt means that it basically attacks on two fronts, Africa and Anatolia, and then remains Hellas basically and Macedonia. So Octavian really, really thought of this.
Played his role well, seeming hesitant to accept such a hefty offer and even appearing humbled by the idea of it all.
He was humble, of course, but in reality, this was his plan all along.
Giving the impression that he was simply acquiescing to the Senate's pressure, the great victor of Rome finally accepted the 10-year offer of authority.
Yep.
With 20 legions now under the steady hand of Octavian and less than 10 years under the weakened Senate, it appeared from the outside that the Roman Republic, or the ruins that had been left of it after the murder of Julius Caesar, were still intact.
On paper, yes. But in actuality, in practice, not. At this point on, the Republic was dead.
From the inside, the picture...
And from the ashes, the phoenix has risen.
The picture was not quite so clear, though. From within, one could see the act put on by Octavian, continuing his role as the humble servant to the people of Rome, who'd simply assumed power for the sake of the citizenry and the good of the Republic.
Yep.
And yet, at the same time, no one could deny the evident imbalance of power and Octavian's comfort to wield that which he was given. And yet, what other option did the people or Senate of Rome have?
Yep, exactly my
Someone
point.
had to calm the chaos.
Yep.
On January 16th...
At this point, so much bloodshed happened, and anyone just wanted literal peace. They didn't want more wars, bro. They didn't want more battles. So it makes
27
sense.
BC, Octavian, by courtesy of the Senate, was styled both Augustus and Princeps.
Yeah, Augustus and Princeps. I wish the title of Princeps held on much longer, but I believe the Princeps title was only reserved to, Octavianus himself. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe some other emperors later on took this title, but it's not as prominent as the title of Augustus or Imperator, or even Kaiser. So yeah.
The former would from that point on become the title given to every Roman emperor, and is seen thus as the beginning of Octavian's role as just that.
Yeah, actually, during the Principate era, the title of Augustus wasn't seen as an emperor, only until maybe Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus, when they both were reigning two emperors basically, and Marcus Aurelius used the title of Augustus over the title of Imperator of Lucius Verus basically. So in actuality, I'm pretty sure the title in the Principate era, Imperator, and Augustus together meant that you'll be, an emperor. After the crisis of the 3rd century and Diocletian's reforms, Obviously, the title of Augustus solely meant a senior emperor. Title of Kaiser meant, junior emperor, and designated successor. And of course, imperator was just honorific title given to the emperor alone. No other general could get that title, obviously.
However, the Senate intended more to bestow their ruler with an honor, not an empire.
Yep.
The latter title, however, signified his position as the most powerful of Rome's political leaders, including the senators themselves.
Exactly. I would say that Princeps is basically like uh, another title for a dictator in terms of senatorial power, you know? So, yeah.
And yet, Octavian, now known as Augustus, was yet to break character. He still played the part of the servile leader and refused to wear nor utilize the signs of authority that his predecessor had, such as Caesar's purple toga.
Yep.
Augustus dismissed crowns, diadems, scepters, and the like. How could such a modest man adorn such signs of unabashed absolute power? Augustus was a
He bided his time, that's why. He knew that in order to transform an empire, a republic into an empire, like basically in order to strengthen his authority, he needed time. He needed time to secure his influence, basically. And it worked. Eventually, it worked. And many emperors after him also, the reason why the empire was so strong during their reign because they were slow about it. That's why many other emperors who tried to do things fast, it was just short-lived, and everything went back to how it was before they took the reign.
good actor. The Senate fell for his every line and scene. Thus, they granted him both the Corona Civica and a marvelous golden shield with the words valor, piety, clemency, and justice ironically inscribed upon
Virtus pietas clementia justitia. Pretty interesting.
it. If Augustus had wished for such a response from the Senate, then he'd carried out his plan quite perfectly. But not everyone was as smitten as Rome's politicians. Some saw through this scripted performance. As months turned to years, Augustus's role as consul remained as sturdy as a rock. As humble as the man may pretend to be, year after year his power was maintained.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, especially during the Principate era, every emperor was consul every freaking year, basically. And, the consul was only reserved to close people and trusted people to the Augustus and to the Augustus himself. So, there are two consuls, right? Two consul offices. One office was already reserved to the reigning emperor, to the reigning Augustus, and another one to perhaps his designated successor or a trusted, person, a trusted figure. Only after, let's say, Diocletian's reforms and the crisis of the third century happened. Only after then, other people got the title of an office of consul, but it was more honorific at that point, and the Augustus only reigned as a consul, only took the office of consul just the moment they got the throne. So basically, I'm gonna give you an example. Arcadius and Honorius, when they were made both co-emperors, they also, after the death of Theodosius I, they also held the title of consul for 1 year. And then afterwards, normal people came into the consul office, basically. So, yeah, that's how it worked. So,
One must
yeah.
question if he was really so opposed to it after all. Augustus, nevertheless, was a terrifically perceptive and clever man. If people were starting to realize that Caesar's heir may be more like Caesar than they'd assumed, the man himself was already aware the skepticism was hatching. And he was soon granted a torturous yet perfect opportunity to take his acting to a higher level and silence such suspicion.
Interesting.
In 23 BC, Augustus fell death.
Whoa. I thought it would be longer, but 23 BC, that's all like only 5 years? No, 4 years. That's like from 27 BC. That's like 4 years, bro.
Ill. It wasn't the first of such bouts of disease, but it was this one that many, including Augustus, believed would be his final fight. And though he believed he was on his way out of this world, he was not going to leave without a closing act. As such, Augustus's subsequent performance shocked many Romans and silenced those who may have been doubting him. Despite having a clear favorite in his nephew Marcus Claudius Marcellus in terms of who he would like to see succeed him as princeps, Augustus took no notice of Marcellus when it came time to divvy out his inheritance. Going through great pains to maintain his air of republicanism and fairness, the ruler of Rome named only possessions which he would pass down. His greatest general and ally, Agrippa, would inherit Augustus's signet ring, a subtle way of signifying that this was his true successor as princeps, though the apt Augustus would never state so directly. And as for nearly all else, Augustus's co-consul and Republican, Calpurnius Piso, would
Copernicus Piso. Pretty interesting man.
take the rest. If this man, Julius Caesar's heir Augustus, truly was an unspoken emperor, why had he done only this? For any who still saw through the princeps' production, they must have been greatly dumbfounded when Augustus returns to health and declines to remain consul. This was a genius political move, and by now, it stands hard to even prove that Augustus had a goal of becoming any type of imperial leader. In response, the Senate came to a new agreement with the now proconsul, ensuring Augustus's power throughout Roman lands and essentially securing yet again his unofficial role as emperor. But some still remained skeptical. After all, what was nearly Augustus's final act had been quite necessary, and for good reason. Prior to his illness in 23 BC, the curtain had nearly shut on the sagacious leader for reasons other than death. Either just before the diseased spring of 23 BC, or a bit earlier at the end of 24 BC, Augustus participated in a trial ripe with scandal and the potential to strip him of his mask and reveal his true aims. This was because the former proconsul of Macedonia, Marcus Primus, was on trial for instigating a war with the Odrysian kingdom, an ally of Rome. Primus had done so without consultation with the Senate, something that was absolutely inexcusable. As the trial carried on, drama began to unfold when Primus's defense declared that it was Augustus who had not only approved, but ordered the military action. Primus himself clarified that it was the ruler's nephew, Marcellus, who gave him the command. Either way, the implication of Augustus was catastrophic. If this was found to be true, all was ruined for Caesar's cunning heir. He would no longer be able to deny his desire for dominance and willingness to throw the Senate's rights and authority to the curb.
Yeah, most likely Augustus did order him to do that, honestly. But I think this was a play for Augustus to see how much influence he has, you know. And if the Senate let him do that, let him basically play the others basically, and be the dominant force and be the most high respected one, and give commands left and right, then yeah, he could go all out. But as he saw, he couldn't go all out, so obviously he took it slow, and that's why he took on that act, obviously.
Consequences of such findings were in fact so potentially deadly for his aims that Augustus himself showed up to testify during the trial. To lie under oath was a considerable undertaking. Nevertheless, some members of the jury believed that when Augustus spoke of having given no order for war to Marcus Primus, he had done just that. So, while Primus would ultimately be found guilty, a new crack had formed in Augustus's facade, and the willingness of multiple jurors to vote against the guilty verdict must have given the princeps a racing heart. Having escaped the doom of an acquittal of Primus, Augustus now saw his reaching authority resecured. Powers of proconsul, censor, tribune, and so forth were all held by the wily ruler. Scene after scene were acted out as the years ticked by. Augustus maintained the thin veil of republicanism as to not alarm any, though remarkable support from the citizenry who wanted to see even more power in the hands of Augustus notwithstanding. More titles and powers were bestowed upon him thus in the years to come. As his powers grew, Augustus looked to embrace them more and more. In one part, through legislation, for example, such as his new laws promoting marriage and reproduction, utilizing both rewarding incentives to those who follow the rules and serious punishment to those who don't, namely adulterers. In the other form, his shows of power came from military expansion, growing Roman holdings in Hispania, Lusitania, and more. And yet, within Rome, there was, at long last, peace. Having been plagued by
the Pax Romana begins.
And blood-stained periods of civil war, Rome had much needed a time of calm, and Augustus brought just that. This span of time, which would continue far into the AD era, became known as Pax Romana. But all legends die, and Augustus had already spent most of his life on borrowed time. The sand in the hourglass had run out. On August 19th, 14 AD, at the ripe old age of 75, the extraordinary and illustrious Caesar Augustus breathed his last breath. It's believed that his final words to the Roman public before his passing in Nola were, "I found Rome of clay. I leave it to you of marble." And to those closest to his heart, whom he saw in his dwindling hours, the first emperor of Rome, at long last, took off his mask and broke character. Have I played the part well? With the curtains closed and the show over, there was only one question remaining in the minds of Augustus's grieving fans. Who would play his part in the sequel? Even in his endmost days, Caesar Augustus laid claim to no son nor obvious heir. It would be the job of his sister, Octavia, his wife, Livia, or his daughter, Julia, to provide the great ruler with his trusted successor.
Yep.
The first of these women.
No, normally, if it was like during late Roman period, it would be like the wife marrying someone else, or the sister already, if they have a husband who take the throne, or if the daughter was old enough to marry, and his son-in-law will take power. So yeah.
Had given her brother the option of Marcellus, her son, but he had already met his end in 23 BC.
Yep.
Subsequently, Augustus next turned to his daughter, Julia, whom he wed to the reliable and quite remarkable Agrippa. This marriage produced 5 sons, 2 of which the emperor took quite a liking to. He adopted both boys, Gaius and Lucius, with full intentions of making one of them his chosen heir. That is, unless one of Livia's sons from her prior marriage could serve him better. And this latter option was still quite probable. Augustus's stepsons, Drusus and Tiberius, were both experienced military generals and significantly older than his juvenile grandsons. Still, Caesar hoped to see Lucius and Gaius gain their own battle experience and prove themselves to be equally valuable choices.
But
This
they also
wish
died.
was utterly crushed, however, when much to the unbridled horror of Augustus, Agrippa and his 2 chosen sons all met their ends within the span of scarcely more than a decade. Further to the sheer consternation of the now aging ruler, Drusus was also dead by the end of the BC years. Lucius had succumbed to illness, Gaius due to a battle wound, and Drusus to a fall from his horse. The only life left deemed worthy by Augustus of ascending to his throne was Tiberius, who
Tiberius
didn't exactly want any of this. After Agrippa's death, Augustus had forced his stepson to divorce his then wife and instead marry his stepsister, Augustus's daughter.
What the heck?
Both adult children were resentful toward the situation as a whole, being painfully aware of their places as pawns in Augustus's imperial games. Julia would thus affair herself into being exiled by her own father, while Tiberius, too, opted to stay away from the emperor. But alas, in 4 AD, Augustus was calling, and Tiberius had to go. Returning to Rome, and thus to his overbearing stepfather and puppet master, Tiberius was officially adopted by Caesar Augustus and named heir to the unofficial Roman Empire. And just like that, the curtain was drawn, and Act 2 commenced.
And fun fact, Tiberius also took the name of Kaiser, of Gaius Julius Caesar, basically. So, yeah. Pretty nice video knowledge. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And, it seems they were collaborating with Ancient Site. I gotta, wait, what's Ancient Site? Hold on. Oh. Okay, pretty nice videos. Okay, Constantine the Great, that's pretty nice. Emperor Maurice, pretty nice figure, actually pretty underrated. The Muslim conquest, okay, end of okay, Constantine the Fifth, oh, 2 days ago, oh, so he's still active, okay, pretty nice periods, underrated periods, actually. I might check this, channel out, but, yeah, this was it, actually. Ironic that Augustus died in August, a month he named for himself. Yep. Well, this was the video, guys. Hope you guys liked it. I certainly did. So I think I'm just gonna, go back and forth, late Roman period, early Roman period, check it out, because I'm still learning things. Like, I didn't know, I feel like some things from this video, like, I knew, but some other things I didn't know. So it's very nice to learn some things. So yeah, anyways, joining us here. Thank you guys so much for checking in, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.